On October 7, 2023, Israel witnessed its most severe attack in half a century. A coordinated assault by dozens of Hamas militants saw them infiltrating Israeli cities, targeting military bases, and causing casualties among both soldiers and civilians. This incident brought back memories of the 1973 Yom Kippur War, when Egyptian and Syrian forces surprised Israel with an attack. In response, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared war on Hamas, the Palestinian group in control of the Gaza Strip. The recent escalation in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict resulted in a tragic toll, with over 200 Israelis and 232 Palestinians losing their lives. It has been marked as one of the deadliest outbreaks of violence in decades. Why does the bloodshed continue to occur? What makes this conflict one of the most complex diplomatic cases in the world? We'll get into that later, but before we continue, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content. On October 7th, Hamas launched a massive barrage of rockets and initiated ground, air, and sea offenses, prompting Israel to respond with relentless airstrikes. The Prime Minister had vowed to eradicate Hamas's Gaza strongholds, and as the conflict shows no signs of slowing down, the situation remains tense. The onslaught began at 6:30 a.m. with rockets raining down on Israel from Gaza. This came after months of escalating violence in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, with a notable surge in casualties in the West Bank, which has been under Israeli occupation since the 1967 Arab-Israeli conflict. Hamas immediately claimed responsibility for the rocket assault. It also announced that its members had launched over 5,000 rockets. Ezzedine al-Qassam brigades, the military wing of Hamas, said in a statement that they have decided to put an end to all the crimes Israel has committed during its occupation of Palestine. It's obvious that Palestinians don't like Israel, but what exactly caused this bitterness between the two countries? Why has this little patch of land in the Middle East become the source of one of the longest-standing conflicts in modern history? After World War I, Britain assumed control of Palestine following the defeat of the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East. In this region, there was a Jewish minority and an Arab majority. The situation was already tense, but everything had begun to escalate as soon as the international community assigned Britain the task of establishing a national home for Jewish people in Palestine. This move led to growing conflicts since both Jewish and Palestinian Arab communities laid claim to the land. Between the 1920s and 1940s, a significant number of Jewish immigrants arrived, many of them fleeing prosecution in Europe and seeking a homeland in the aftermath of the Holocaust during World War II. Simultaneously, violence increased between Jews, Arabs, and against British rule. In 1947, the United Nations voted in favor of splitting Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem designated as an international city. While Jewish leaders accepted this plan, it was rejected by the Arab side and was never put into action. There was a lot of back and forth between these two sides until 1948, when the British rulers departed with a resolution. The Jewish leaders acted fast and quickly declared the establishment of the State of Israel. This move forced strong objections from many Palestinians, and this ultimately escalated into a war. Troops from neighboring Arab countries entered the conflict, resulting in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, a period they refer to as Al-Nakba, or the catastrophe. When the fighting ended in a ceasefire the following year, Israel had gained control over most of the territory. The West Bank was occupied by Jordan, while Egypt took control of Gaza. Jerusalem was divided between Israeli forces in the west and Jordanian forces in the east. With no peace agreement in place and each side blaming each other, the subsequent decades witnessed further wars and ongoing conflict. Over the years, Israel and Palestine have had their fair share of clashes, ranging from minor skirmishes to more significant conflicts, resulting in the loss of many lives. Back in 1987, Hamas, which is short for Harakat al-Maqawama al-Islamiyah, emerged from the leadership of Palestine cleric Sheikh Ahmed Yassin. It started with a political faction associated with the Muslim Brotherhood, a transnational Sunni Islamist organization. It's worth noting that Hamas played a role in both of the Palestinian uprisings, commonly known as Intifadas, that had a profound effect on Israeli-Palestinian relations. The second uprising in particular marked the end of the 1990s peace process and marked the beginning of a new era of conflict. In an attempt to smooth things over, US President Bill Clinton convened the Camp David Summit on July 11, 2000, bringing together Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and Palestinian Authority Chairman Yasser Arafat for what was supposed to be some serious final status negotiations. However, the summit turned out to be a real rollercoaster ride, and let's just say no cigars were passed around at the end, leaving the already rocky relations between the two nations in even rougher waters. In 2000, partly because of Palestinian grievances about Israeli control of the West Bank, a stalled peace process and a visit by former Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon to the third holiest site in Islam's Al-Aqsa Mosque in September 2000, Palestinians kicked off the Second Intifada, which lasted until 2005. In response, the Israeli government gave the green light to build a wall around the West Bank in 2002, despite objections from the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court. In 2013, the United States tried to restart peace talks between the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. However, these talks were disrupted when Fatah, the ruling party in the Palestinian Authority, formed a unity government with its rivals Hamas in 2014. Hamas is one of the two major Palestinian political parties in Palestine, but it had already been labeled as a foreign terrorist organization by the United States in 1997. During the summer of 2014, clashes in the Palestinian territories led to a military shutdown between the Israeli military and Hamas. In this confrontation, Hamas fired nearly 3,000 rockets at Israel, and Israel responded with a significant offensive in Gaza. The conflict ended in late August 2014 with a ceasefire deal brokered by Egypt, but not before 73 Israelis and 2,251 Palestinians lost their lives. In March 2018, there were some weekly gatherings at the Gaza-Israel border by Palestinians. The last one happened around the 17th anniversary of Nakba, when Palestinians left their homes during Israeli independence. While most protesters were peaceful, a few citizens got riled up and started tossing rocks and other stuff over the fence. The United Nations reported that 183 demonstrators got killed and more than 6,000 were hurt by live bullets. During the same period, the Trump administration made a big deal about trying to work out a deal between Israel and the Palestinians. They stopped giving money to the UN Relief and Works Agency, which helps Palestinian refugees, and moved the US Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which was a big change from what the US used to do. Israelis liked it, but Palestinians and folks in the Middle East and Europe weren't too happy. Israel claims Jerusalem as its capital, while Palestinians want East Jerusalem to be their future state's capital. In January 2020, the Trump administration came out with its Peace to Prosperity plan, but Palestinians didn't like it because it supported Israel taking over settlements in the West Bank and controlling all of Jerusalem. In August and September 2020, the United Arab Emirates and then Bahrain decided to normalize relations with Israel, becoming only the third and fourth countries in the region to do so, following Egypt in 1979 and Jordan in 1994. These agreements, known as the Abraham Accords, came after the United States hosted Israel and several Arab states for talks in Warsaw, Poland, about peace in the Middle East. Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas opposed the accords and Hamas also rejected them. In October 2020, an Israeli court ordered the eviction of several Palestinian families living in Sheikh Jarrah, a neighborhood in East Jerusalem, by May 2021, with their land going to Jewish families. In February 2021, some Palestinian families from Sheikh Jarrah appealed the court ruling, leading to protests during the appeal hearings and an ongoing legal battle over property ownership, resulting in the displacement of Palestinians from their homes in Jerusalem. In late April 2021, Palestinians started demonstrating in the streets of Jerusalem to protest the pending evictions, and Sheikh Jarrah residents, along with other activists, began hosting nightly gatherings. In early May, after the court upheld the evictions, the protests grew, and Israeli police force used force against demonstrators. After weeks of daily demonstrations and increasing tensions during Ramadan, violence erupted at the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, with Israeli police using stun grenades, rubber bullets and water cannons in a clash with protesters that left hundreds of Palestinians injured. There is concern that a third intifada could break out and the renewed tensions will escalate into large-scale violence. The United States has an interest in protecting the security of its long-term ally, Israel, and achieving a lasting deal between Israel and the Palestinian territories, which would improve regional security. Whether or not peace can reign in an area like Gaza is a tough question. It's so complex that it's usually left untouched by politicians. Since the militant group Hamas grabbed control of Gaza back in 2007, this small, cramped place has been at the center of Israel's ongoing conflict with Palestinians. Gaza, also known as the Gaza Strip, is a narrow piece of land about 25 miles long and 7.5 miles wide, sandwiched between Israel, Egypt, and the Mediterranean Sea. It used to be part of the Ottoman Empire and later the British Empire, serving as a safe haven for approximately 200,000 Palestinians who were displaced during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. Egypt ruled over Gaza until losing it to Israel in the 1967 Six-Day War. In 2005, Israel pulled out its troops and evacuated Israeli settlements from Gaza. These days, Gaza along with the West Bank is one of the two places where Palestinians have some limited self-government. Israel controls Gaza's airspace and maritime boundaries and, together with Egypt, enforces a blockade. For around a decade until 2006, the Palestinian Authority was in charge of governing Gaza. The Palestinian Authority also administers the West Bank and is mostly under the influence of Fatah, the main faction of the Palestine Liberation Organization that signed a peace agreement with Israel. However, in 2006, Hamas, which doesn't recognize Israel, won legislative elections. After a few months of clashes, Hamas took over Gaza. In response, Israel imposed a blockade, citing security concerns. Since then, there have been 4 significant military clashes between Israel and Hamas militants in Gaza. While Hamas is responsible for security in Gaza, funding for essential services like healthcare and electricity mostly comes to the United Nations and foreign countries, either directly or through Palestinian Authority. The UN thinks that over 5,200 people in Gaza have lost their lives in the on and off conflicts with Israel. A lot of them are kids, and most of them were killed in Israeli airstrikes. A report from 2021 by the Euromed Monitor Group said that almost all kids in Gaza were dealing with trauma from the conflicts. Most people in Gaza live in refugee camps that were set up more than 7 decades ago for Palestinians displaced during the 1948 war. With not much economic activity, many still depend on UN food assistance. Israel's 14-year blockade has made poverty worse. There are power cuts every day for several hours and the tap water isn't safe to drink, so people have to buy desalinated water from private sellers. Speaking out against Hamas is risky, but many people in Gaza express their complaints in private. Gaza is a place with no natural resources, a history of poverty, and mostly refugees, which already makes life tough. On top of that, both Israel and Egypt are wary of Gaza because of its association with Hamas. They keep a blockade and destroy tunnels used for smuggling goods. Israel has made some small efforts recently, like letting 20,000 Gazans work in Israel where they can earn way more than they would at home. But there's not much hope for a peace deal that would significantly improve living conditions anytime soon. The situation is complicated by the presence of a smaller, more militant group in Gaza, separate from Hamas, which was responsible for attacks on Israel in May. The strict control Israel and Egypt exercise over Gaza's borders was meant to prevent Hamas from acquiring weapons, but the situation has resulted in a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Many people struggle to access basic necessities such as food and water. Meanwhile, Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank are shouting from the rooftops that they're bearing the full load of Israeli actions. Those with grievances are shouting from the Gaza blockade to the construction of the West Bank barrier and the demolition of Palestinian homes. But Israel isn't taking this lying down. They're arguing they're just defending themselves against all this Palestinian commotion. They've had to deal with thousands of rockets raining down on their turf courtesy of Hamas, and Palestinian militants have been pulling all sorts of stunts, targeting innocent Israeli civilians left and right. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a pretty complicated one, with a really long history. On one side you've got Israel, which is one of the world's top-notch militaries. On the flip side there's Hamas, a Palestinian group that's in charge of Gaza. Let's take a quick look at both of them. So, Israel is a big player on the world stage, and in 2022, US News and World Report ranked them super high in terms of power and military strength. They were fourth, just behind Russia, the US, and China. Their air force is really state-of-the-art, boasting all kinds of high-tech machines like the F-35 stealth fighters, smart bombs that hit targets with as little extra damage as possible, a bunch of sensors in constant communication with other, and missile boats ready to zap incoming missiles or drones. Oh, and by the way, they've got nukes too. Many people think that Israel has nuclear weapons, and there are different guesses about how many they might have, ranging from 80 to 200 warheads. The Arms Control Center suggests that Israel has about 90 nuclear warheads made from plutonium, and they could make even more, somewhere between 100 and 200. On the Palestine side, Hamas recently used armed drones for the first time to target Israel's heavily fortified Merkava 4 tank. According to Hamas, these weapons were acquired through secret channels, bypassing military facilities, air and sea patrols. While Hamas has strong ties with Iran and Syria, they've also managed to get their hands on various weapons such as the Fire 3 and Fire 5 rockets, Iranian R-160 missiles, M302 rockets, drones, anti-tank missiles, and portable rocket launchers. What we have seen from them so far is only the beginning. Things are about to go crazy in the Gaza Strip. Israel and Palestine have been stuck in a cycle of crises, and recent deadly attacks in the past few weeks are making people worried that the situation in the Holy Land might be heading towards more violence. There's talk that it could be on the edge of another Intifada. The first two uprisings didn't manage to put an end to the occupation, and unfortunately, a lot of people, mainly Palestinians, lost their lives. As for how this decades-long conflict will finally come to an end, it's a tough question with no easy answers. It'll likely take a lot of diplomacy, negotiations, and goodwill from both sides to find a lasting solution. With that, we've come to the end of this video, but be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. See you later.